Would you give up a $1 billion empire for the chance to hold a child that isn't even yours? That's exactly the choice Daniel Whitaker faced moments after a stranger collapsed at his feet in the pouring rain, clutching her dying baby, begging for help. A man known for being cold, calculated, and untouchable, Daniel had never let anyone close. But in that single second, something shattered inside him. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask what she wanted. He simply said, "Your son is now my son," and carried them both into the storm. What followed was a whirlwind of life and death urgency, buried trauma, and a love so unexpected it would threaten to tear Daniel's world apart from the inside out. He would face ruthless boardroom ultimatums, betrayals disguised as concern, and a woman who disappeared just when he thought he'd found home. But in losing everything, he might finally discover what truly matters. Stay with us. What begins with a desperate cry for help will lead to the most powerful redemption story you didn't see coming. Please, someone help, my baby can't breathe. Rachel Brooks screamed into the storm, her voice raw and desperate, but no one stopped. The rain pounded the Chicago pavement like a drumbeat of doom. She was kneeling on the freezing sidewalk along Michigan Avenue, soaked to the bone, her trembling arms wrapped around her 3-month-old son, Liam, whose lips were turning a sickening shade of blue. "Please," she cried again, her voice breaking. "He's dying." Umbrellas swayed past her. People walked quicker, looking away. No one cared. No one even slowed down. And Rachel felt the last flicker of hope slipping away with every shallow breath her baby struggled to take. Then tires screeched. A black BMW came to a hard stop inches from the curb. The door flew open and out stepped a man in a tailored charcoal suit, his shoes splashing into the puddles without hesitation. Daniel Whitaker, billionaire, ruthless CEO of Whitaker Global, a man whose net worth could buy a city and whose name usually followed headlines like unbreakable or unreachable. But in that moment, he didn't look untouchable. He looked stunned. Rachel barely registered his presence before collapsing at his feet. "Please, save my baby," she whispered hoarsely. "He's all I have." Daniel stood frozen, rain dripping down his chiseled jaw as he stared into her tear-soaked eyes. What he saw there, raw, desperate love, hit him like nothing ever had. He had seen desperation before, but never devotion this pure, never love this naked. He took a breath and made a decision that would upend everything. "Get up," he said firmly, lifting her to her feet. "Your son is my son now. Let's go." Rachel didn't even have time to question it. One moment she was on the sidewalk, the next she was in his car cradling Liam as Daniel drove like a man possessed. The rain hammered the windshield. The city blurred past them in a swirl of streetlights and terror. Rachel whispered to Liam, rocking him in her arms, begging him to stay awake, to keep breathing. Then a flash of headlights. A semi-truck blew through a red light, skidding into the intersection. "Daniel," she screamed. He swerved hard. Tires screamed. For one terrifying moment, the car spun. They stopped just inches from the guardrail. Rachel couldn't breathe. She clutched Liam tighter, her heart hammering in her chest. Daniel looked over, chest-heaving, eyes wide. "Are you okay?" Rachel nodded through her tears. She didn't understand what just happened or why this man was risking everything for a stranger, but in that moment she believed he was the answer to her prayer. 10 minutes later, they burst through the emergency doors of St. Mary's Medical Center. Respiratory failure. Daniel barked to the first nurse who came into view. 3 months old. He needs help now. The medical staff jumped into action. Liam was whisked into a trauma room. Rachel's knees buckled. She would have collapsed if Daniel hadn't caught her. "He's going to make it," he said. "I won't let him die." She didn't know why she believed him, but she did. As doctors rushed Liam to surgery, Daniel spoke to the attending physician. "He needs an emergency operation," the doctor said, "and we're talking north of 200 grand. Daniel didn't blink. "Do whatever it takes. I'll cover it all." Rachel turned to him, dazed. "Why, you don't even know us." For the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to feel. He remembered himself as a child in an orphanage, abandoned, unloved, wishing someone would fight for him. "Because every child deserves to live," he said quietly. The waiting room was silent except for the ticking clock. Rachel sat shivering in her wet clothes, her fingers clasped so tightly they were white. Daniel took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders without a word. Then he made a call. "James, I need dry clothes for a woman, size small, and something warm to eat. Now." Rachel looked at him half in awe, half in disbelief. "Who are you, someone who wants to help?" Daniel replied. "What's your name, Rachel? And the baby Liam? He's my whole world." Something shifted in Daniel. It wasn't just pity. It wasn't obligation. It was something deeper, an instinct to protect, to stay. "He's going to be okay," Daniel said, and for the first time in her life, Rachel believed it. "I promise." They waited. Minutes crawled. Hours passed. Nurses came and went. At some point, Daniel realized he hadn't checked his phone once. His billion-dollar world was paused for a woman he'd met in a storm and a child whose heartbeat had somehow become more important than his empire. Rachel told him her story of being kicked out by her parents when she got pregnant in college, of a boyfriend who disappeared, of working 2 jobs just to afford a crumbling studio apartment in Southside Chicago. She'd spent her last savings on useless appointments and had nowhere left to go. Daniel listened, jaw tight, fists clenched. He didn't speak, but inside something burned. Fury, not at her, but at the world, at the people who abandoned her. "Where do you live now?" he asked. "A shared flat in Southside. 4 units, 1 bathroom. It's all I could afford." Daniel imagined this woman studying with a newborn in one arm, working night shifts, still hoping for a better life. She had more strength than half the executives he paid 7 figures to. "Rachel," he said softly, "when Liam gets better, what do you want for your future?" She hesitated. "To finish my degree, to become a teacher, to give Liam a normal life." Daniel looked her in the eye. "And if I told you you could have all of that?" Rachel blinked. "What do you mean, come work for me?" "As my assistant, I'll pay for your tuition, get you a real home cover childcare, not charity and investment. In you, I can't take your money," she whispered. "It's not about money. I need someone real around me, someone who knows what it means to fight for something." The door opened. The surgeon stepped out. Daniel and Rachel jumped to their feet. The doctor smiled. He made it. Rachel burst into tears, collapsing into Daniel's arms. And for the first time in his life, Daniel Whitaker felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. We're sorry to leave you hanging right at this emotional moment, but don't worry, the story only gets more powerful from here. Would you have trusted a stranger like Rachel did? Do you believe one act of compassion can change an entire life? If this story moved you, please hit like and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Right now, the words he made, it kept echoing in Rachel's ears like a prayer answered in real time. Her knees nearly gave out as she crumbled into Daniel's arms, sobbing with relief. Liam was alive. Her baby was alive. Daniel held her without hesitation. He didn't care that she was drenched or trembling. In that moment, the icy CEO who once measured every second in profit had completely vanished. He wasn't a man of power anymore. He was simply a man who had witnessed a miracle and somehow felt like he was part of it. Hours passed like a blur. Daniel stayed, refusing to take any calls, ignoring the buzzing phone on the hospital bench. Rachel sat beside him, wrapped in a dry hoodie James had delivered, her eyes still red, her soul still shaking. At some point she whispered, "I don't even know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Daniel replied. "Just promise me one thing when you get your life back, make it count." She turned to him, curious. "What about you? Have you made yours count?" That question lingered, and for the first time in years, Daniel didn't have an answer. Liam was recovering in the pediatric ICU, asleep and stable. Rachel was allowed to see him for a few moments. Daniel waited outside, staring blankly through the hospital window into the storm-soaked night. The city glittered with indifference, but for the first time, he didn't feel like he belonged out there among the boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. He felt like he belonged in here with them. When Rachel returned, her eyes soft but sad, Daniel was already on the phone again, ordering groceries to be delivered to her address, scheduling a cleaning crew, organizing a security detail for the hospital. Rachel watched him stunned. "You don't owe us anything," she said quietly. Daniel turned. "That's not why I'm doing it." Then why he hesitated, then sat beside her. "Do you want the truth?" She nodded. "I was raised in foster homes. Abandoned at 3. I don't remember my mother's face or my father's voice. I grew up promising myself I'd never need anyone. That's how I built Whitaker Global. Cold, controlled, alone. Rachel looked at him wide-eyed. The confidence in his voice was gone, replaced by something achingly human. But today, Daniel continued watching you hold on to your son like that. I remembered something, a dream I used to have as a kid that someone would walk into my life and fight for me the way you fought for him. Silence stretched between them. The hospital lights flickered faintly overhead. Rachel's eyes welled again, but not from fear this time, from recognition. She wasn't the only one who had lost something. Then, as if afraid he'd said too much, Daniel stood. I want to show you something. Come on. They drove in silence through the city until they reached a quiet neighborhood in Maplewood, the rain finally easing to a drizzle. Daniel stopped in front of a townhouse, new clean, with warm lights glowing from the inside. What is this? Rachel asked, wary. It's yours. Fully paid. You and Liam deserve better than a shared flat with one bathroom. Rachel stared at him, stunned. Daniel, I can't accept this. You're not accepting a gift, he said firmly. You're accepting a future. Before she could argue, the front door opened. James Adler stood inside with a warm smile and a set of keys. Daniel, Rachel whispered, Why are you doing this for me? He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Because helping you, it doesn't feel like charity, it feels like redemption. The next morning, Rachel woke in her new bedroom, sunlight spilling through the window. For the first time in months, Liam was breathing easily. She stood over his crib, watching his chest rise and fall, a strange peace beginning to take root in her bones. Later that week, Daniel returned not as the distant CEO, but as someone different. He carried a small bag with paperwork, university enrollment forms, a schedule for her new part-time job as his personal assistant, and a contract for full childcare coverage. You're serious about this, she said, still in disbelief. I am, but this isn't a favor. I need someone like you around, someone who reminds me what real strength looks like. Rachel looked at him unsure. I'm just a girl who got pregnant in college and got left behind. You're a woman who didn't give up, Daniel replied. And that's exactly the kind of person I want near me. Still that night, Rachel couldn't sleep. Something gnawed at her. Was it too good to be true? Why would a man like Daniel, wealthy, powerful, guarded, open his life to her? Just after midnight, she jolted awake from a nightmare. Liam wasn't crying, but she still rushed to his crib in a panic. To her shock, Daniel was already there, sitting quietly beside Liam's bed, watching him sleep. He looked like he hadn't moved in hours. I couldn't leave him alone tonight, Daniel said softly without turning. Rachel's voice was barely a whisper. Why? He finally looked up. His eyes were red. Because when I saw him stop breathing, it reminded me of myself, and I didn't want him to feel alone the way I did. Rachel stood frozen in the doorway. Something inside her shifted, something deep. She realized this man, this billionaire, wasn't trying to save her. He was trying to save himself too. We're sorry to interrupt the story here, especially at such a vulnerable moment, but next part will reveal the ultimate test of everything they built together. Would you have taken Daniel's offer if you were in Rachel's shoes? Do you believe people can truly change when love enters their lives? If this story touched your heart, please like the video and share it with someone who believes in second chances. 6 months passed like a dream no one dared to wake from. The townhouse in Maplewood was no longer just a house, it was a home. Toys littered the living room, Liam's laughter echoed down the hallways, and Daniel's once sterile schedule now revolved around nap times and preschool applications. The man who once ruled boardrooms now sat cross-legged on the floor, letting a 9-month-old crawl over his suit pants without a care in the world. Rachel had finished her degree in education with honors. She now worked full-time at Whitaker Global, managing the company's new social impact initiatives programs she had helped design to support single mothers and disadvantaged children across Illinois. Daniel had given her a title, a salary, and a seat at his table. But more than that, he had given her respect. But not everyone approved. Rumors swirled in financial circles. Shareholders whispered behind Daniel's back. Tabloids ran with headlines like CEO in love with a waitress and from billionaire to babysitter. The pressure wasn't subtle, it was mounting. And soon it became unbearable. One crisp morning, Daniel received a formal summons from the board of directors. A closed-door emergency meeting had been scheduled. He didn't need anyone to explain why. He walked in calmly, but the air was cold with judgment. At the head of the table sat Charles Gorman, a founding partner and longtime ally until now. "We've reviewed your recent decisions," Charles began, folding his hands. "Your public image has changed. Investors are nervous. You've allowed distractions to affect your leadership." Daniel said nothing. He waited. "We are giving you a choice." Charles' continued, voice dripping with condescension. "Step away from the relationship with Ms. Brooks and her child, or step down as CEO. You cannot have both." Silence fell. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Be very careful how you speak about them." Charles raised an eyebrow. "They are not your family?" "Yes, they are," Daniel said through gritted teeth. "More than any of you ever were. Don't throw your legacy away over a woman who waited tables and a child that isn't even yours." Daniel stood. "Then I choose them." The boardroom exploded in murmurs. "You're making a mistake," Charles snapped. "No, I made a mistake thinking this company ever represented me. I'm resigning, effective immediately. I'm selling my shares, and I'm taking my future with me." Later that night, he stood in the kitchen, heart still pounding, as he told Rachel everything. She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "You didn't have to do that. This was your life." "No," Daniel said, pulling her close. "You are my life. You and Liam." She shook her head, tears falling. "You'll regret this. Not now, but one day. I'd regret it more if I lost you." But Rachel couldn't sleep. That same night, while Daniel rocked Liam to sleep, she packed a bag. She left him a letter. "You gave up everything for me. I won't let you lose yourself because of it. Maybe someday, when you find balance again, we'll have our chance. But for now, I need to walk away so you don't have to." The next morning, Daniel found the note. She was gone. Weeks passed. His house felt colder than any winter outside. He traded skyscrapers for playgrounds, suits for sweatpants, boardrooms for lullabies, and now he had neither. Then one morning, a knock at the door. Rachel stood there, her eyes red. But this time she wasn't trembling. She wasn't running. She was ready. "I thought leaving was the right thing," she said, "but I was wrong. I realized something, Daniel. You didn't need saving. You needed someone to choose you just once in your life. So I'm choosing you. All of you. The man, not the empire." Daniel stepped forward. "Are you sure I don't have the company anymore? The fortune's been halved. My name isn't on a magazine cover now." Rachel smiled through tears. "Exactly. You're not what the world thinks you are. You're more." They didn't waste another day. They married in a small ceremony in a park near the lake, surrounded not by billionaires or business tycoons, but by the very people their new nonprofit had helped families like Rachel once was children like Liam once had been. Liam, now 2 years old, ran down the aisle with the rings shouting, "Mommy, Daddy," as the crowd laughed and wiped tears. Rachel and Daniel stood under a string of paper lanterns as the sun dipped below the horizon, promising forever, not in gold or glory, but in love. Today, their organization, Hope Spring Foundation, builds daycare centers in low-income neighborhoods, funds scholarships for young mothers, and offers free childcare to those pursuing education. Daniel never returned to the corporate world. He never wanted to. He had already found the only title that mattered, Dad. And every night as he held Rachel close and listened to Liam breathe softly in the next room, he knew this was the life he had waited his whole childhood for. Sometimes to gain everything you have, to lose what never truly mattered. Now we want to ask you, would you walk away from power and fortune for the people you love? Do you believe love can give someone a second chance at life? What do you think of this story? If you loved it, comment number 3 below. If it felt just okay, comment number 2. And if you think we could do better, let us know with a number 1. Also tell us, what country are you watching from? Please like, share, and send this story to someone who still believes in love that transforms. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life.